One of the most difficult things for me as a fantasy content creator is trying to put out advice that kind of appeals to everybody, but I think we have done it in today's video. Today, we're going to be breaking down a new video series coming every Thursday of every week, week 1 fantasy football matchups that matter. In this video, we're going to break down games to target, over-unders, implied point totals, where the sharp money is going, shadow matchups, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends with good matchups, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends with bad matchups, even some defense and kicker talk. It's really difficult for me to, put out videos that appeal to everybody, but the idea behind this is that you guys can watch this video with the context of your own fantasy team or fantasy teams and determine which information is pertinent to your start-sit decision. So this will be our new Thursday video, as I mentioned, along with, of course, a live stream before TNF every single week, and then Fridays and Saturdays each week, we will have wide receiver and running back tier list rankings, respectively. So let me know down below what you guys think of this video, any feedback that you have for this video. We're definitely open to feedback, but without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. All right, so if you skipped the intro, all of these matchup charts that I'm going to be breaking down are going to be pertinent information relating to Vegas and, matchups and that kind of thing to help you guys out with your start-sit decisions. All of these matchup charts, all of these Vegas info tables and everything that I'm going to break down in this video are available in our weekly ranking spreadsheet. This is the #1 tool out there that you guys can use to dominate your friends this season. It's going to give you everything you need to make proper, informed start-sit decisions. And of course, if you guys want access to our weekly rankings and access to all of this information that I'm going to be breaking down for free, you can sign up over on Underdog Fantasy, the official show sponsor of the Fantasy Stock Exchange, with just $10, and you will get our start-sit rankings, our weekly rankings, and all of these tables for free. It is also available on flockfantasy.com/FSE for 30% off as well, if you guys already have an Underdog account, or if you cannot play Underdog in the state that you're in. So anyone who used our code for the draft guide should also have access to this. Go back and check the email that you got from us. You will see the access to the weekly rankings there as well. So we're going to start with the top 5 over-unders and bottom 5 over-unders from the week 1 fantasy football games. You guys can see them on the screen. Ironically, tonight's game, Detroit Lions at Kansas City Chiefs, is the highest over-under game of the entire week at a whopping 54 points. So, fire up your Detroit Lions, fire up your Kansas City Chiefs, because that game is going to have a lot of points. We're, of course, waiting for some injury talk when it comes to Travis Kelce and some of the other guys, Kadarius Toney, there on the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Chargers and Dolphins also represent a very high over-under game environment. Bengals and Browns as well. Buffalo Bills at New York Jets, and then Dallas Cowboys at New York Giants. These 5 games are games that you want to use as tiebreakers for your start-sit decision. So the worst game over-unders, you guys can see them on the screen right now: Arizona Cardinals at Washington Commanders, Carolina Panthers at Atlanta Falcons, Tennessee Titans at New Orleans Saints, San Francisco 49ers at Pittsburgh Steelers, New Orleans Saints hosting the Tennessee Titans, and then Green Bay Packers at Chicago Bears. Let's say, for example, that you have Marquise Brown on your roster, who have the lowest over-under total, 38 points, of any game this week. You might want to use Mike Williams as a tiebreaker, knowing that the Los Angeles Chargers are in a game environment that could score 51 points. So that's definitely how you want to use these over-unders. Of course, all of the games over-unders are available in the weekly rankings matchup chart there. Implied point totals. So with the over-unders, basically, Vegas is stating that they expect Team X to score a certain amount of points. So in the Detroit Lions-Kansas City Chiefs game, they're expecting the Kansas City Chiefs to score 29.25 points. In a 54-point over-under, they have they're favored by 4.5 points. Basically, the math works itself out to the Kansas City Chiefs being implied for almost 29.25 points. Los Angeles Chargers, Baltimore Ravens, Seattle Seahawks, and Minnesota Vikings all implied over 25 points. So definitely fire up some players from those teams. Implied point totals that are the lowest on the week: Arizona Cardinals, Houston Texans, Carolina Panthers, Tennessee Titans, and Pittsburgh Steelers. So again, if you have some tiebreaker decisions, you don't know whether to start Jordan Addison or Deontay Johnson, maybe go with Jordan Addison, knowing that the Steelers are not implied for that many points, and Jordan Addison and the Vikings are implied for a ton of points. As far as where the sharps are betting, you guys can see where the sharp money is going towards the unders right now. The Las Vegas Raiders Denver Broncos game, the sharps are quite confident that one's going under 44 points. The Patriots and Eagles, the sharps are quite confident that one's going under 45. And then the Cardinals at Commanders are also, the sharps are confident that that one's going under 38. So I would say Cardinals and Commanders, maybe you want to sit those players knowing that that the over-under isn't very high. And the Commander side of things, maybe you get away with, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Gibson, those type of guys. But for the most part, we want to avoid that game when it comes to our start-sit decisions. Then we get into where the Sharps are confident that we're going over. We have the New York Giants and Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins, and Los Angeles Chargers already high over-under totals on those two games. And then the Indianapolis Colts hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars as well, with the sharp money mostly going on the over, already a 45.5-point game. That one should be a decent option for those of you guys that are playing DFS as well. So that is mainly the Vegas stuff that we're going to go over. Next, we get into the shadow coverages. So for those of you guys that are unaware, maybe you're new to football, the way that shadow coverages work is certain teams deploy their number one corner or their number one and number two corners on the opposing top receivers. And every week it's going to vary given, who the top receiver is, who the top corner is. Some NFL teams have a stud receiver that demands shadow coverage. Some NFL teams don't have a shadow corner that is going to shadow certain players. So we're going to go through and basically talk about some of the guys that are going to see a downgrade this week, some of the guys that see a slight downgrade this week, and then some of the guys that see an upgrade this week, and then finally some guys that we're not sure if there's going to be shadow coverage or not. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Basically, we're going to get right into it. The Buffalo Bills, Stephon Diggs is expected to see shadow coverage from Sauce Gardner. Obviously, that is, elite on elite, two of the best at their position going at it. You're still starting Stephon Diggs, but maybe downgrade him just a little bit. Gabe Davis, of course, a guy that is a little bit boomer bust, knowing that he's going to see DJ Reed and a tough Jets pass defense and coverage. Maybe you leave him on the bench for better options. Devontae Adams is expected to see shadow coverage from Patrick Surtain, who, of course, both of those two guys, again, elite on elite, best at their position. You're still starting Devontae Adams, but he does see a downgrade going against one of the best corners in the league. Mike Williams going up against Xavier Howard. And again, the way that you can kind of take this one away is that Mike Williams, as the X receiver, is probably going to be locked up by the Dolphins' number one corner. That could open things up for Keenan Allen if you guys are stuck in a start-sit decision. Maybe you go with Keenan Allen over some other option because Mike Williams is expected to see shadow coverage. But either way, you're still starting him in that game environment, as I mentioned. I don't think anybody's starting Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Isaiah Hodgins, or Darius Slayton. But you definitely shouldn't be because they're expected to see some tough corners. Bradbury, Slay, Diggs, and Gilmore for the Eagles and Cowboys, respectively. Then we get into the Jets situation here. We got Garrett Wilson expecting to see Tre'Davious White in shadow coverage. Again, a tough matchup for him, but he's still a great receiver. I expect him to be in your lineups. And then DeAndre Hopkins is expected to see shadow coverage from Marshawn Lattimore. So those are the major downgrades when it comes to shadow coverage. We also have two other shadow coverage matchups that are not quite downgrades because the corners aren't as good and the receivers are probably just better overall at their position. Jamar Chase is expected to see Denzel Ward for the Cleveland Browns. T. Higgins expected to see Martin Emerson Jr. And then Amari Cooper on the other side of the ball is expected to see Chidobe Awuzie, who is usually used in shadow coverage by the Cincinnati Bengals. And then we also have some matchups that are advantageous for the wide receivers. So if you guys have any of these wide receivers or any of these players, definitely wheels up for these guys. Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk have a good matchup. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett have a good matchup. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans have a good matchup. And then Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson have a good matchup. So those guys, if you're in a stuck between a start-sit decision between a guy with a bad matchup and a guy with a good matchup, maybe you lean with the guy with the good matchup. Maybe you're stuck between Mike Williams and Christian Kirk. Maybe you go with Christian Kirk given the matchup advantage there. And then some matchups that we don't know if we're going to see shadow coverage just because we don't have a lot of data on the corners or on the receivers as well. We may see Drake London versus J.C. Horn in the Falcons-Panthers game. We may see Justin Jefferson versus Carlton Davis in the Minnesota Vikings Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, and we may see CeeDee Lamb versus Adoree Jackson. All three of those receivers are good enough to beat those corners, so I'm not overly concerned. Now we get into positional matchups and who has the best matchup at quarterback, who has the best matchup at running back, wide receiver, and tight end. You guys can see the best 5 matchups for the quarterback position and the worst 5 matchups for the quarterback position on the screen. Of course, knowing that this over-under game, 54 points for the Kansas City Chiefs and Detroit Lions tonight, definitely encouraging. Both of those guys are great options. Of course, I don't need to tell anybody to start Patrick Mahomes, but Jared Goff, also a very solid streamer tonight as well. The Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert seem to be wheels up against the Miami Dolphins. Denver Broncos and Indianapolis Colts, Russ Wilson and Anthony Richardson both have pretty decent matchups if they are available on your waiver wire. Maybe you need a streamer or something like that. Can't imagine you would need a streamer at this point in the season already. but those guys also have pretty good matchups as well. Then we get into the quarterbacks with bad matchups. You're still probably starting all of these guys for the most part because they're all really good quarterbacks, but they do have bad matchups for what it's worth. Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. Those guys not advantageous matchups, but they're probably still in your lineup, although Aaron Rodgers is the one guy that you maybe want to swap out if you have a better option. For example, Jared Goff tonight, going on Thursday Night Football versus Aaron Rodgers on Monday night, I probably lean Jared Goff, given the matchup advantage that Jared Goff has over the Kansas City Chiefs defense. So if you guys are also looking for some streamers right off the waiver wire, for whatever reason you faded the quarterback position or whatever, I mentioned Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Desmond Ridder, and Baker Mayfield all have really good matchups this week. Don't love any of these game environments, but Baker's actually has the highest over-under game against an abysmal Vikings defense. Probably not a guy that you're throwing into your lineup, but if you play in Superflex leagues or you're just looking for a cheap DFS play, I think Baker makes some sense there. Then we go into the running back position. The best running back matchups are on the screen right now. Baltimore Ravens, J.K. Dobbins going up against the Texans. That should be a big-time coming-out party for him. The Washington Commanders, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, both very good flex options this week against the Cardinals. Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Mixon against the Browns should be a pretty decent matchup for him. And then Denver Broncos, hopefully, again, another coming-out party for Javonte Williams against a soft Raiders run defense. And then Green Bay Packers against the Chicago Bears. We should have a pretty decent matchup there for Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Probably Aaron Jones is the only guy in your lineup, but if you're desperate, I suppose you could throw A.J. Dillon out there as well. The worst matchups for the running back position, Najee Harris in the Pittsburgh Steelers, James Conner in the Arizona Cardinals. Probably Jamal Williams, I would assume, is the main starter there for the New Orleans Saints with Kamara out. Then the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley, and DeAndre Swift and the remaining Eagles running backs. Again, if you have a tiebreaker with some of those decisions, maybe you leave them on your bench. I would imagine, though, you're still starting Najee Harris and Saquon Barkley of that group for the most part. But I will say tiebreakers, maybe you leave DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, and James Conner on your bench if you have better options for your flex or for your other RB spots. So best wide receiver matchups of the week. We have the Atlanta Falcons, Drake London and Kyle Pitts probably will get after that Panthers defense. New Orleans Saints, Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, decent plays this week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as I mentioned, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, easy matchups against the Vikings. Minnesota Vikings on the other side of the ball, easy matchups against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson definitely in your lineups as always. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, we don't know what to expect out of their wide receivers. We don't know if Travis Kelce's going to play, if Kadarius Toney's going to play. But if you guys want to watch a guy on Thursday Night Football tonight, I think you could do a lot worse than throwing Sky Moore into your lineup in a game with a 54-point over-under. The Chiefs implied for 29.25 points. And a guy that has a great matchup against the Lions' soft secondary. So those are all the top wide receiver matchups. The worst wide receiver matchups are the Buffalo Bills with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Again, you're still starting Diggs, but maybe Gabe Davis stays on your bench this week against the Jets. Los Angeles Rams, I'm like Cooper Kupp isn't going to play, so I would not start Van Jefferson or anybody else. Las Vegas Raiders with Devontae Adams. He's the only guy that I'm probably throwing into my lineup. I'll probably leave Jacoby Myers and Hunter Renfrow on the bench if possible. And then Baltimore Ravens, we don't really know how this wide receiver core is going to shake out. If you don't have to start Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr., or Rashad Bateman, I probably wouldn't until I see how this wide receiver core kind of shakes out this week. And then Chicago Bears going up against the Green Bay Packers. DJ Moore's probably into your lineup, but he does see a bit of a downgrade knowing that Jair Alexander and the Packers defense is pretty strong against wide receivers. Next, we get into the tight end position. You guys can see the top 5 tight end matchups on the screen. Tyler Higbee in the Los Angeles Rams, Logan Thomas in the Washington Commanders, Juwan Johnson / Taysom Hill in the New Orleans Saints, and then the Los Angeles Chargers with Gerald Everett, and of course Travis Kelce, if he plays, has a really good matchup, and I probably wouldn't mess around with Noah Gray if Travis Kelce is out unless you are absolutely desperate. I think there should be better streaming options on the wire if you are without Travis Kelce tonight in your lineup. I would much rather go after Gerald Everett, who has equally as good of a matchup in a very high over-under game. He is my favorite of that streamer group, and also, Tyler Higbee should be available with Cooper Kupp out. He could get a lot of targets. Taysom Hill and Juwan Johnson probably should be available in most leagues, and also Hayden Hurst of the Carolina Panthers just missed out on this top 5 list. He is a decent streamer as well. Guys that don't have a good matchup, leave Chigga Conquo on the bench, leave Tyler Conklin on the bench, leave Trey McBride / Zach Ertz on the bench if you can. Leave Luke Musgrave on the bench, especially knowing that he's a rookie. I kind of want to see what his role is first. And then Atlanta Falcons, Kyle Pitts is in your lineup, but he does have a bit of a tough matchup against the Carolina Panthers. So closing out this video, we'll rapid fire the DST and kickers. Jacksonville Jaguars, Baltimore Ravens, Las Vegas Raiders, Seattle Seahawks, and Green Bay Packers are all good streaming defense options this week. A lot of those defenses are probably widely available in your leagues. My favorite option of that group is Jacksonville, just given that they're going up against a rookie quarterback in his first game, as well as Baltimore going up against CJ Stroud for the Houston Texans. Defenses that you definitely want to do without this week, probably the Detroit Lions and Kansas City Chiefs. Even though high over-under games can often lead to a lot of pass attempts, sacks, turnovers, things of that nature, I would not start either of those defenses on Thursday Night Football tonight. Pittsburgh Steelers, Indianapolis Colts, and New York Jets, also defenses that have tough matchups, although the Steelers and Jets are good enough defenses that they could maybe overcome those matchups. And as far as the best kicker matchups, Buccaneers, Raiders, Giants, Seahawks, and Cowboys kickers, Steelers, Jets, Saints, Patriots, and Eagles kickers, maybe leave those guys on your bench. But generally speaking, when it comes to kickers, the best thing that you can do is just target games with high over-unders, high-scoring offenses, and things of that nature. So we are now wrapped up with this video. Again, it's probably just going to be a brief, outline the best matchups, take advantage of, using the lens of your fantasy teams to the information that I'm breaking down, and kind of take away what you need to take away based on your own teams, helping you guys out with your start-sit decisions. If there's anything you guys want me to do, if there's anything that you feel like was missing from this video, leave it down below as feedback in the comments. I definitely will take it all. This is a new video series, so I'm not married to anything that I did in this one. And definitely come week 2, this one will be a little bit more organized as well. So if you guys want access to all the matchup charts, all the Vegas information, all of the, what running backs and wide receivers, I only broke down the top 5 for each position. But if you have somebody in the middle of the pack that you want to know if they have a good or a bad matchup, you can get access to these weekly matchup charts by going to Underdog Fantasy, depositing with $10 using the promo code FSE. And of course, when you deposit $10, you will get access to all this information for free. And of course, check out everything that Underdog has to offer. They have a live pick'em special for tonight, 0.5 passing yards for Patrick Mahomes. So basically a free square if you guys want to do some pick'em tonight. And also new depositors will also have a mystery pick'em special similar to the Patrick Mahomes one tonight that they can take advantage of at any point in time. And of course, if you can't play Underdog or you already have an Underdog account, you can get access to this information on flockfantasy.com, promo code FSC for 30% off. And you'll also get all of our weekly rankings as well. So if you want to know who to start, who to sit, you guys can see that in our weekly rankings, as well as, using this information in these tables to make your own informed decisions for yourself for all of your fantasy football leagues. So again, let me know what you guys thought of this video. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.